A second ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis sparking a massive riot after agitators harass, intimidate, and throw fireworks at immigration officials. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says the administration is ready to work with Minnesota leadership, but the ball is in their court.
This kind of violence is perpetuated by what we hear the governor saying, what we hear the mayor in Minneapolis saying, and their irresponsibility is extremely reckless. Governor Tim Walz has my phone number. I have called him and talked to him and said, listen, you let your city burn down in 2020. Don't do it again. President Trump wants to keep everybody safe. We're enforcing federal law. We're protecting every single American. Work with us.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Emily Compagno. Also joining us, Kennedy, host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, and Griff Jenkins, Fox and Friends weekend co-host. Let's start here. Minneapolis's police chief said the crowd was engaging in unlawful acts. Rioters swarmed agents, shouted profanity, attacked their vehicles, smashed window shields, and threw sensitive documents into the streets. You see those images there. Vandals even broke into a federal vehicle and spray painted, quote, "The only good agent is a dead agent" on it, as this video shows. Now, DHS recapped the incident that sparked the outrage. Federal law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted traffic stop of an illegal immigrant from Venezuela who was released into the country by the Biden administration. The subject attempted to evade arrest by driving away before crashing the car and fleeing on foot. And when the officer caught him, the perp resisted and violently attacked the officer. Then two others came out of a nearby apartment building to defend the Venezuelan, who started attacking the officer with a shovel or a broomstick. Now, many of these details left out of the media headlines. We'll show you those in a moment. And DHS says, fearing for his life, this officer fired a defensive shot to save his own life. After the incident, Democratic Governor Tim Walz confirmed state investigators have been on the scene in North Minneapolis before adding, "I know you're angry. I'm angry. What Donald Trump wants is violence in the streets, but Minnesota will remain an island of decency, of justice, of community, and of peace. Don't give him what he wants." Minneapolis's Democratic Mayor Jacob Frey had a similar message.
This is not creating safety. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE. So let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable.
Now, the mayor and the governor often, Griff, leave out the disgusting, inappropriate behavior of some of the protesters. You have a right to protest. You don't have a right to do what we've put on the screen. But I want to pull up some images. This is our own Jamie Vera got these images of some of the documents, sensitive documents that were strewn out of the street, ransacked documents. And what you see is law enforcement information on the documents. It's blurred there. Protesters picking up the documents, carefully going through them. This worries me because we've seen targets on that of ICE agents, attacks at the Dallas facility, a terrorist attack there, I would characterize that as. And here's personal information just strewn on the streets.
It's not just personal information, Kayleigh. These are the A files, the alien files. Remember, the individuals that ICE is going after are illegal immigrants who committed crimes and then were released back into the community by state and local officials. So ICE has a federal duty, obligation to go and arrest them. And these files have who the individual is, the crimes they committed, the addresses they lived. They're highly sensitive. I rode around in Chicago for days during Midway Blitz with ICE, and we have the A files. And then, of course, you see another video where they're literally taking the weapons case out. And at the end of the day, you know, left out of Governor Walz's address was to let his fellow Minnesotans know that 18 U.S. Code 111 makes it a federal crime to obstruct, assault, or impede a federal investigation. And that is what these protesters are doing. He also left out a personal service announcement, which I'll make to Minnesotans today, which is if you attack federal law enforcement with snow shovels, you are likely going to be shot because that is their training. And it is beyond me that you are seeing the rule of law just disappear in Minnesota because the mayor and the governor are inciting this. You know, at the end of the day, you can't incite an arsonist and then ask him to be a fireman the next moment. And that is what we're starting to see now with Mayor Frey trying to dial it back.
Yeah, Governor Walz must have had a nice night of rest, nice night of sleep, because he woke up with an epiphany. He wants us to turn down the temperature, he says. But this is a far cry from what he said last night. Listen to this. It wasn't turn down the temperature. It was resist.
You are not powerless. You are not helpless. And you are certainly not alone. All across Minnesota, people are learning about opportunities, not just to resist, but to help people who are in danger. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans.
So should we resist, Harris, or turn down the temperature, as he said during your hour?
Well, look, I want to roll back the tape a little bit, and you set that up perfectly. Yes, he had a thought, but I think it was a phone call with the DHS Secretary who said, look, I'm going to give you a number to reach me. I'm ready to do what we've always said we would do, and that is put fewer agents on the streets if you'll just work with us and not against us and put our people in danger. Like, she talked about that this morning, and within moments of this coming out, you knew exactly that's what had to happen. And you know who knew better? Governor Walz, because that was a shot across the bow. Look, the ball is in your court now. Are you going to save people's lives by doing the right thing and turning down the temperature? And of course, now he's going to try to do that. Now, I don't know, because look, Mayor Frey said this: the federal agents do not share the values of you and me, that the ones that we hold dear. He's still speaking like that. I think everybody's got to get on the same music now and sing the same song about take it down a temperature and stop vilifying people out there who are doing their jobs as ICE agents. That's not just the governor. He's going to be gone soon. That's also the mayor, who hasn't been in office long, Jacob Frey. Can they do this? Can they answer the call of safety and common sense and work with the federal government? Now, look, that is politically deadly for them, because then they're going to have to play differently than the sanctuary state and city that they are. Will they do that, or will they stay politically comfortable?
Well, if they don't do that, President Trump has made very clear what he is going to do. In a Truth Social tweet this morning, you can see this here. He said, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me. And then he goes on to say this: Emily, the Insurrection Act, the last time this was put into place was 1992, George H.W. Bush. And one of the ways you can use it is if you work with the governor. Right? Yes, and the governor was complicit in that case, working with the federal government. In this case, you have a resistant governor, but the president can invoke it when it's impractical to enforce federal law because you cannot enforce normal judicial means due to unlawful obstructionist. I would argue we're very close to that line.
Yeah, I mean, I think, frankly, in 2020, that mirrored and I mean, each is their own beast, but the Watts riots, I think the George Floyd 2020 riots, it should have been called in then, too. Yes. This is absolutely grounds for that. And I want to focus a little bit on the rhetoric, just to underscore, because I can't wrap my brain around when we hear this particular language from the governor and the mayor there. From the mayor, disgusting, intolerable behavior. To me, I would think that would mean sodomizing minors. That would mean recidivist rapes. That would mean homicides. When we hear the governor talk about helping people in danger, to me, that means helping all of those citizens there in Minnesota and Minneapolis who were subjected to these horrific recidivist crimes at the hands of illegal immigrants. And when he talks about a database of atrocities against Minnesotans, yeah, that's what we already have. That's in the criminal federal and state database of the judiciary, because when we talked about and put up on our screens the litany of individuals that have been arrested by ICE enforcing the law for those crimes, those were convictions. And I know the left made much about allegations versus convictions, where there you have those convictions. So to your point, I don't know why we are still hearing from them, not only that fomenting language as ICE agents are continue to be assaulted in broad daylight and the middle of the night and have to defend themselves. And we see the complete breakdown of law and order there. The sensitivity of the information in those documents, the contents of the weapons box, the fragility and sacredness of the ICE agents' lives, those are all and more at stake. And most importantly, the protection and safety of all of us Americans that right now is being obliterated at the hands of not Donald Trump, but the governor and the mayor there who refuse to see common sense for what it is.
But the New York Times, Kennedy, leave it to them to come up with the headline of the day. Here's the headline: Federal agent shoots immigrant in Minneapolis. Homeland Security says the agent shot an immigrant from Venezuela in the leg while trying to arrest him. An official said the shooting comes a week after ICE agent fatally shot a woman in the city. It seems the New York Times, the venerable Times, missed a few details.
Yes. Was the agent supposed to assume that when he was being attacked by the perpetrator's shovel, that they were doing it just to sort of move him out of the way like you would a snowdrift? No, I think you could assume that that was being brandished as a pretty severe weapon. You know, if not to kill the guy, then at least to severely wound him. And, you know, that's how the officer is going to respond. But when you talk about bringing the temperature down, it starts with Walls. It starts with Fry. Fry doesn't care because he's a clown show. You know, he was the guy who was sobbing at George Floyd's funeral. And Tim Walz is so grateful to have this story. He is so grateful for the chaos because the longer we're seeing skirmishes in Minneapolis, the more people who are jumping in front of cars and getting shot, the better it is for him because he gets to kind of seem like a governor, even though, like, this is pretty basic stuff in terms of public safety and in terms of telegraphing a message and getting people to think about their actions and calm down before they seek conflict, which can be lethal, unfortunately. He can't even do that. So, you know, this story, at some point, it's going to go away, and you are going to be left with the fraud scandal once again. And these are two tiers where Tim Walz has utterly failed.
Yeah,
more information because the investigation doesn't stop because of what's going on now.
Yeah, Nick Shirley last night with all the new details with Jesse Waters on now the transportation companies, not just the daycares.
I love, by the way, Waltz has yet to establish a snitch line. Remember in 2020, he had the COVID snitch line? We don't have that yet for ICE, but I guess he just wants video.
Well, I wonder if Gwen Walz threw open the doors so she could smell the burning city once again.
And the Walls is it to think that Kamala Harris chose him as a running mate, the biggest indictment of her political judgment.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.